What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Rad Chad Show. Today we've got a review for you of Codenames Duet. This is the two-player cooperative version of Codenames. Codenames and Codenames Pictures has just been a smash hit. I love both of those games, and the question is, does the Duet version live up to the legacy that is Codenames? We're going to find out right now in this review. Okay, Codenames Duet is really easy to explain how to play, because basically if you've played Codenames or Codenames Pictures before, you know almost every single rule for this game. It only makes a few really minor tweaks to the rules, but otherwise it's virtually identical to those games. Now, if you haven't played any of the Codenames before, here's a quick rundown of this version in specific. So there's a grid of 25 cards out on the table. Each card has got a unique word on it. Now you've got a little cheat sheet card that is double-sided, and each person's side, you're going to be sitting across from each other, has got a representation of that grid, and some of the cards are labeled green, some are labeled white, and some are labeled black. Now what your objective is to get your partner to guess all of your green words. You do not want them to guess the white words because those represent bystanders. They're not going to end the game. It's not that big of a deal if they do guess them, but it will end their turn when they are guessing. Last but not least, you've got those black cards, and those are spies, which if your partner guesses one of those, the game ends in immediate failure. So you want them to guess those green cards. Well, how do you do it? What you're going to do on your turn is you're going to come up with a one-word clue, and you're going to tie in a number with it. So for example, my clue might be people 3. My partner is then going to try to figure out which of the words out on the table, that grid of 25 words, correlate to people, and they know that my number 3 is how many I think correlate with that specific clue. So then they might start guessing. They might say, okay, well, carpenter, and I'd say, yep, that's correct, and you'd put a tile over it. Then they might say, Joe, and I might say, yep, that's correct, and they'd put another tile over it. And then they might say, I don't know, salesman, and I might say, oh no, that one's wrong, that's a bystander, so I put a tile over it representing that that's a bystander, and that would end their turn. But basically, they're guessing your clues, and then as soon as they're done guessing, they will then pass a clue back to you, you guess, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out each person's words, and as soon as you have accomplished all of their clues, they've accomplished all of your clues, boom, you automatically win. However, on the flip side is, if you don't do it in enough time, you'll lose, and also, obviously, if you guess one of those spies, you also lose. And the game's literally as simple as that. And that brings me to the first thing that I really like about Codenames just in general, is how easy this game is to teach and to immediately play. It doesn't take long, so the barrier to entry to get somebody into Codenames is really, really minimal. This is a great gateway game. It's a game that I think almost anybody can enjoy on some level. Now, Codenames Duet in specific, I think takes it even a step further. Because in the past, when you played the original couple versions of Codenames, you had to have teams, so you had to have at least 4 players. With Codenames Duet being just a 2-player cooperative game, you can literally break this out anywhere with just one person and you're immediately ready to jump in. I just think it's so much easier just to find, hey, come join me, one person, and boom, set it up on the table, you're good to go. And it's every bit as good as Codenames or Codenames Pictures, with one exception. I've really been babied by Codenames Pictures. For me personally, it made the base game of Codenames obsolete. And it was for one reason and one reason only. And that was the fact that in the Pictures versions, you didn't have the extra rule of, okay, well, you can't say these words because, look, that word's already out on the table, or it rhymes with this word, or, hey, a part of the word that you want to give as a clue is also out on the table. So there's restrictions with what clues you could actually give. When you only have pictures out there are no words. So you can say whatever you want. I really liked that about Codenames Pictures. Now, Duet goes back to that original Codenames style, and I think that's because you honestly couldn't create a Pictures version of this 2-player game when you really think about it. I felt like I was taking a step backwards to an inferior game. Now, I really like Codenames, and I'm sure there are plenty of people who like Codenames more than they do Pictures. But for me personally, I prefer the Picture style, so this felt like a small step backwards. But I still really enjoyed my time with Codenames. It's a really challenging game, and especially in the duet version, since there are multiple spies out there, you can find yourselves resulting in very early failure if you're not very conscientious about the clues that you're actually giving. So I don't think it's necessarily a flaw that a lot of games can end early in failure. I just think it's more so something that you have to game plan and take into consideration because it's part of the game, and you have to be smart about what clues you're actually going to give. The game also has an interesting way of making it to where you never know. You can't like figure out by process of elimination what their clues are or vice versa. Because the way that it works is that cheat sheet, even though it's got double-sided, some of the other player's words are identical to your words, and your words are identical to theirs. But it's only a certain small percentage of the overall amount of words. So you're always trying to figure out, okay, well, this could be their word and it could be my word. Or my word could be their fail. Their fail could be my success. It's just a really interesting way of having to wrap your brain around and never knowing exactly what are your words and what are their words. Whereas you would think when you first start reading the rules, oh, I can figure this out with process of elimination. No, not the case at all. So I guess one last thing. There is like sort of this, I'm going to call it quasi-legacy element to the game. They give you like this giant old notepad of paper. It's kind of got like a map of the world on it. And you can sort of like make this legacy or campaign version where you globe-trot and you have different ways of playing the game with the amount of clues, the amount of turns and such that you can have. I haven't really dabbled into that at all because I think that the base game is perfectly replayable enough. But I thought there was a nice little small addition that they threw into the game that they didn't need to do at all. So really, to recap all of this, I think you got to ask yourself if you're in one of three buckets, right? Number one is if you like Codenames or Codenames Pictures, this is a no-brainer. If you want a two-player cooperative version of either of those games, this hits home perfectly because it's basically the same game, okay? If you have never played Codenames before, but you're interested in the game, I think this is a phenomenal starting point. You have to keep in mind it's really, really tough, okay? But other than that, again, that barrier to entry for this game in specific is super, super low, so you can always get this one to hit the table, and it's every bit as good as Pictures or Codenames. Obviously, not quite as good as Pictures because I love Pictures, but it's basically every bit as good as those two. So yeah, I would probably even suggest Duet over either of those. The last thing is if you don't like Codenames and its various iterations, this is not going to change your mind at all. I cannot emphasize enough. This is almost the exact same game as Codenames and Codenames Pictures. It really could just be a variation to the rules that you would throw in one of those games. But the only reason why you have to get this game is because it has those double-sided cheat sheets. I guess in your base games, you could just take, two of those cheat sheets, right? Put them back to back or something like that. But I mean, really, this is the exact same game. So hopefully that gives you guys a good understanding of what to expect with Codenames Duet and whether or not it's right for you. For me personally, I like the game a lot. I'd give it a solid 8 out of 10. And that's it for now. Thanks for watching the Rad Chad Show.
Thank you for watching the Rad Chad Show. Until next time.